you work for this immortal status, fame, glory, and the shit goes away in a generation. There are comedians that I cherished that if you would ask a kid that works in your bookstore, they got no idea who Phyllis Diller is, or George Carlin even, who was huge. So yeah, to what end? To what sacrifice? You sacrifice everything for greatness.
I can't imagine there's many comedians that have studied philosophy at Oxford. Have you run into any other ones?
Nobody's stupid enough to do that. What idiot gets a degree in philosophy? Fucking moron.
Well, what drew you to it?
Well, I'll tell you, I was a very depressive teenager, a lot of anxiety at 13. I had my existential crisis at 13. I realized my parents were fucking worthless. And I was like, I got to raise myself.
Yeah.
But thankfully, I had a bitchin' pair of tits so I could buy cigarettes at 13 years old. So my life was complete as long as I could smoke cigarettes. And anyway, I had really dark thoughts. And then I studied philosophy as a freshman. I had my first class. And I was like, oh my God.
In high school or college?
College.
Okay.
So
Where'd you go?
I barely eked through high school. I mean, I don't even think I broke 1,000 on my SATs. I couldn't study at home. It was a mess. I get into college just by the skin of my teeth. I went to the University of San Francisco, and I got in on academic probation, like such a loser, barely get into college. And I'm in great philosophical questions. And this brilliant man, Dr. Mankus, rest in peace, he's dead now, but he gave me Heidegger's What is Called Thinking, not me, the whole class. And it was this idea that there's a layer to thinking. What is called thinking? Not just thinking, what am I going to eat? Am I going to take a shit? Are we going to have popsicles? Are we going to screw? But like thinking. Mm-hmm. And my brain fucking lit up. And I was like, this is what I've been waiting for. Answers to the universe. This is it. This is it. And then I was obsessed. Wow. Yeah. And then it taught me how to think, how to be free. Like Sartre says, the existence precedes essence. I can define my future. I can think for my future. And this is one thing I want to teach my kids. It's not about what am I going to learn in school, even though that's important. I believe in learning stuff. But to form your life actively, nobody fucking tells you that. Nobody told me like, hey, if you don't plan your life, life will run you over, man. Sure. You need a plan, homie. Get into it. And the one good thing about philosophy degree, which I would say for anybody thinking about getting one, is that it teaches you to think clearly and to speak clearly. And I know so many dumb motherfuckers in this world who can't even think. Yeah. I mean it. And I'm fucking bored when I talk to 90%. I love you because I think you're just brilliant. My eyes glaze over because I'm like, Jesus, I know where this is. I know what you're going to say. And not that I'm so brilliant, but I think about dumb things. This is what I love doing. Yeah. And I get very frustrated.
You just picked that up from the internet. You know what I mean? Like you're just repeating something you heard someone else say.
That's what Jordan Peterson said yesterday on Instagram. You fuck. I know that guy.
Yeah.
But I also feel my brain dissolving after having 2 kids. But what was really great about philosophy, it teaches you how to think. It teaches you how to write. It teaches you how to analyze reality. And it really got me out of the matrix of how women are supposed to be and stuff, too. That was another one. I was like, oh, wait. Oh, this is bullshit. Like, oh, none of this fucking bad. Like, yeah. Like, I always laugh when people blame society. They're like, and society tells women. It's like, do they? Is there a mandate? Is there a rule? Like, you have to be a Kardashian? I understand that it's hard to not compare yourself when you're a young, impressionable girl. But it's like, you can also go, I don't need to do that. I can be my own thing.
Things can be systemically fucked up and unfair and all that. And then the Stoics would say, still, you control how you respond to that. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't address the larger problem. But the fact that the system is what it is doesn't absolve you, the individual, from the necessity of figuring out how to navigate it and not be corrupted or broken by it.
Or even thrive in it. So when I started comedy, there were no women.
Yeah.
And I could have, I was broken by it. I was like, oh my God, there's no girls. I'm going to be the only girl at the Comedy Store. And then I went, I'm the only girl at the Comedy Store. Like Home Alone, and he's like, oh, what is it? I made my parents disappear. And it was like the party moment where I was like, I'm the only one in the game. Great fuckers, watch me run.
Yeah.
You don't like it? Suck my tits. I don't care. I don't like you. I don't care.
You know Dr. Drews, who introduced me to Same thing. I was in a philosophy. I was taking a class on Aristotle. It was like ethics and the meaning of life.
Yeah.
And I mean, Aristotle's great. And we did Aristotle. We did Camus. And
Wait, who taught your class, Dr. Drew?
No. I went to Riverside, and I was just taking a regular philosophy class with a philosophy professor who was interesting, and I'm reading it. And then I went to this thing. I got invited because I was writing for the college newspaper. I got invited to this thing in Hollywood that Dr. Drew was speaking at.
Oh.
And so I asked him if he had a book recommendation. He recommended Epictetus. So that's how I ended up being introduced to the Stoics. And I was like, this is way better than what I'm learning in school. This is like actually usable shit from like real people in the real world, as opposed to just abstract questions. And yeah, it just totally changed.
How did it grabbed you by the nuts? What was it? Do you
know,
remember?
there's this passage in meditation that I think hit me, especially as a college kid. He just talks about like how hard it is to wake up in the morning. You know, like he's like,
yes.
he's like, he literally goes, he's like, at dawn when you awake, and then he like interrupts himself and he goes, but it's warm under the covers. And he goes, is this what you were put here to do? You know, to huddle under the covers and be warm. And like, so he has this like dialogue with himself about getting out of bed in the morning. And that's not what we think of philosophy as being.
No.
Philosophy is like, how do you know if you have free will? Or, you know what, like it's questions that are interesting, but it's not like, let me help you get out of bed early.
Yeah.
You know, I just fucking loved that. And it's so readable and accessible.
Especially the Greeks. The Stoics.
Yes. Yeah, the Stoics especially.
Yeah.
And like, it's because Marcus Aurelius was writing to himself. Like, and so it feels like he's writing to you. He's not writing to the audience.
Wow.
He's writing to you. And there's a parallel to comedy there, in that like the most specific comedy is the most universal.
Yeah.
And so here you have a philosophy text that wasn't written as a philosophy text. It's notes in a diary that somehow becomes the most universal and, you know, sort of memorable of philosophy texts.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't thinking of you. He was trying to be honest with himself. So it's totally stripped down. There's no performative element in it. There's no artifice. It's just him talking to himself.
Yeah, because once you get self-conscious, it gets inauthentic.
Yeah.
Once you start thinking about the audience too much, like there's a certain level you have to, where you're like, I have to explain this premise properly.
Is this working?
Like they're going to tell you if it's working or not, really, with laughter. But yeah. Can I tell you something?
Yes.
Ryan Holiday, I never really do other people's podcasts.
Really?
No. But I love you. And
All
I
right.
love what you're doing. And
Well,
I believe
thank you.
it's intrinsically valuable, as the philosophers say.
Yeah.
It's a service to humanity. And I hate making chit chat.
Yes.
And I think it's so important to have real conversations about things that matter.
Well, yeah, if you do your own podcast, you're not super excited to then just go do another one. You're like, I talk fucking enough. That's what
Can I curse on this show?
Of course.
Oh, fuck yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Wondery lets you curse.
Yes, although I often do get angry messages from regular people about it.
Really?
Yeah,
What
well,
are
I'm
they
like a
mad
California person, so I say like, and
Sames.
I curse and stuff, and people like think it's not professional or whatever, but I can't turn it off.
I can't turn it off either, because I'll listen back to one of my shows and be like, oh, I wish I hadn't F-bombed so much.
Yes.
Because what if there are kids in the car or something, and then, I don't know.
When I wrote the Daily Stoic, my editor asked me to remove cursing. She was like, look, I think we can really sell this in like religious stores, and if you curse, you won't be able to. And I was like, all right, I'll give it a shot. And we sold 0 copies in any religious stores. And now I wish I could go back and put some curses in it.
You know, that's interesting you say that, because like, as a creative person, the initial thing is like, I want the most amount of people to like me. And then you're like, they're not gonna give that
Yeah, they don't
up.
like you anyway.
Stop it.
Yes.
You're not going to appeal to that person that's just not into you, right? It's not gonna fucking happen.
Most of the few things that I regret about stuff that I've done, it's never that I went too far. It's always that I pulled my punch because I was concerned what a certain audience was going to think.
Yes.
And those people ended up not liking it for other reasons,
Yeah.
or that I even existed at all was upsetting to them. So like I didn't get the credit that I thought I was going to get.
Well, and two, like I will write bits that I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get canceled on this one, and I'm almost excited when it airs. I'm like, ooh, Netflix is gonna be juicy, and no one cares. And it's the innocuous throwaway line or just something you're not even thinking about that Twitter will blow you up for, and you're like, okay.
Yeah.
So you can't predict what anybody's gonna like or dislike.
No, and Yeah, I don't know. It's better just to do what you think you want to do and not care about what other people are thinking.
Yeah, I agree. And that gets easier the older I get, the less shits I give. Oh, what's that not giving a fuck book? What's his name?
The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. Mark, he's great. Yeah. Well, I think people think about the last part of the title, like not giving a fuck, but like actually that the weight in that title is the subtle art, because it's like there's some stuff you should give a fuck about and then other stuff that you shouldn't care about at all. It's really knowing the difference that is the whole thing.
Or as he says, where to put your fucks.
Yes.
Which is essential. Because I do think, and I think the lovely part of having children is it whittles down a lot of time to think, time to be idle, and time to give a fuck about things that aren't crucial.
Yes.
Especially when your children are very, very young. And you start to go like, oh yeah, oh my God, I cared about so many things.
Well, I really like Tom's bit about not having time to argue with people once you have kids, because who gives a shit?
Yeah, you're right. Fine, great. Yeah.
Yes.
Because you argue all day with small children.
Well, that's what I think is so funny about Elon Musk. This dude has 10 kids.
Yeah.
He's the richest person in the world. He's running like 8 companies.
Yeah.
And he wakes up and he just argues with random people on the internet. Like he's retweeting like cat turd 2 or whatever. Like these are the people that he's having conversations. That's a real account.
Yeah. It is?
Yes. It's
That's
like,
a good
yeah,
one.
it's this alt-right stupid account. But the point is like, don't you have like a lot going on? Like, how do you have time for this shit?
Okay. So I have friends who are deeply successful, deeply time constrained men, and yet they get into these. Did you see that thread on Reddit? Did you see? And I think it's because it's a lovely place to displace your anger, right? Like either it's road rage or it's like getting mad about something somebody said on Twitter. It's a safe place to display rage because you guys can't fight each other anymore. You can't like go into a ring and fight lions or whatever the hell, as the Greeks did.
Yes.
So now you guys have to duke it out in a safe space. Is that maybe it? Because women generally, are we doing this stuff? I don't know.
Yeah, maybe your interactions are with actual people. Like, can you believe so-and-so said, like, it's
Gossip.
about real people that you actually know.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
As opposed to just like tweeting 50,000 times a day.
Yes, we like to do it snippety snips behind
like
closed
group chats
doors.
and things.
Being like, oh my God, coffee.
Well, it's like there's the group chat and then there's the when then 2 people jump off to talk about what someone just talked about in the group chat.
I love that.
I do too.
Yeah.
But I think also it's people are looking for any distraction from having to be in their actual lives.
Of course.
You know, like if you were actually spending time with your 10 kids, you would never open Twitter. You know what I mean? Or if you were running just one of the companies, you know?
I know. That's so true if you were really engaged. Because people always say, oh, you know, your children, they grow up so fast. I'm like, well, you're not spending enough time with your kids.
Yes.
Because if you're really there every day, like, yes, I understand time is a construct and you feel feels slower, it feels faster, but it feels about where it should be for me.
Yeah, we spend so much time with them. It's like, what? No, like I talked to people and they were like, oh yeah, like I remember I was talking to this person I knew and they told me how they saw like Top Gun like 3 times in the theater. And I was like, what? You have a 2-year-old? Like what? You know?
Or my favorite, I love TikTok. It's where I get all my news and information from. And I love the people that are into the lifestyle, swinging, and polyamory.
Oh, polyamory, sure.
Because you're like, who's got this much time to be invested in their orgasms and in their genitals? Like, if just really, like, you're an adult. If you're in your 20s, I got it. That's fine.
Sure.
But you have like adult responsibilities. You're building a career. You're putting books in the wall. And you're like, who am I going to F with my wife? Who are we going to hot wife tonight? It's absurd.
Yeah. How do you have time for this stuff?
How do you do that?
And some of them also have kids. So you're like, what?
I know.
It's crazy.
I know.
Yeah.
Could you imagine? And you kids find out? Oh my God.
No, that's super weird also.
I would die.
Well, it's actually Samantha and I were talking about someone that
swinging.
we know.
I thought you were going to say we were talking about swinging.
No. We were talking about,
so
again, who has the time? No, we were talking about someone who's very into that. And we were like, you know what the worst part about it is? It's not that they do it. The worst part is it's that clearly part of it is that they need us to know that they're doing it.
That is the crux. And that's the crux I think that's why like this identity politic thing, if that's what we're calling it, I'm I'm an able-bodied, non-binary, semi-gluten-free, lesbian, whatever. And it's like, A, good for you.
Yeah.
B, if it's fluid, you're just going to change the shit tomorrow. So I don't want to have to learn all your things today.
Sure.
And C, nobody gives a shit.
Yeah.
Nobody truly cares about your fucking, who you're banging, what gives you an orgasm. I don't want to know at dinner.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Right. No.
Deeply.
And you could just
Fucking,
not only,
crazy.
if it's so great, just enjoy it. You know what I mean? Like you don't need to like convert anyone to it.
Just bang. Well, like today I was reading, there's a comedian that came out. He was living as a straight man, and he's like, I am now pansexual.
Wayne Brady.
Right.
He seems like a nice guy.
See, a lovely man.
Yeah.
So let's take him out of the equation. But I think the idea of taking out a press release. Like
yeah. What is pansexual? Is that where you're attracted to everyone?
You're horny. You're just anything.
So like most people.
Yeah. I'm horny, guys. Taking out a press release. I want to bang.
Yeah.
Like, why do and he has kids and stuff too. It's like, okay, all right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Now we're just going to text about you and make fun of you, you know?
Yeah. No, it is. It's a time thing, and then who decides to make this like their entire identity? The polyamory thing is nuts. Polyamory,
So
psychedelics. It's just shut the fuck up. Live your life. You haven't figured anything out.
But the problem with poly is they're like, so we're introducing a third into our pod, and it's all about communication. So you have to talk about your feelings and then talk about your feelings that you've had in the feelings. And you're like, Jesus, all this talking just so that you can squeeze another person's titty.
Yeah. How much better could it be?
It's really no diff.
Yeah.
I mean, sex is in the mind, and I think you learn that. It's funny, I was just talking to a comedian, and he's like, I don't understand these men who, we were talking about somebody that had multiple children outside of his marriage, who was married for 40 years and acted like a normal person.
But they had like a second family?
Not just not a family, just father, just had so many children. He Johnny Appleseeded.
Yeah.
And you're like...
That's a fetish, though, I think.
Really?
Yeah, it's like, I think people, they like the idea of reproducing.
Ew, that's so narcissistic.
Of course.
It's bad enough you do it with your own two kids. But what was my point with that? I guess
that he fathered all these kids.
Just like the amount of anxiety and the amount of work for what, an orgasm is what my friend said. And I was like, God, that's so true. Like, what?
But if you're not actually doing any of the work, you're just writing a check, which is what I think a lot of people are doing.
Yeah.
You know, then you're not like, I've been talking about this distinction between like having kids and being a parent.
Oh my gosh.
And I think a lot of people have kids, but then it doesn't change like their actual life in any significant way.
Oh yeah.
And so I think like if you're just like someone who has kids, then deciding that actually your main pursuit is, you know, opening up your marriage or whatever, it doesn't really, it's not a serious impediment in any way, because like you were already just doing whatever you wanted all the time anyway.
Right. Exactly. But having children should be an impediment.
Of course.
In a major way.
It's a huge responsibility.
Yeah, it's a life. I was a workaholic before I had children, and okay, let's talk about this.
Yes.
Let's talk some shit.
Okay.
The women's movement taught me that I could have everything, right? I could have the career, I could have my children, and it's all good. It'll work out.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so my husband and I were on the same career path.
Yeah.
Okay. We have children. Well, who's going to stay home?
Yeah. Right.
This guy.
Yeah.
Who's going to this guy breastfeed and take the kid and so there's an ethical duty, there's an imperative. One of you has to raise these kids. So I could go on with my career full throttle.
Sure,
I could be a Supreme Court judge or whatever, right? The women can do anything. Okay, but who's going to raise the kids? Mm-hmm. And I know that's such a crazy, antiquated idea. Like, oh, women, you just go back to work. Like that, what's that? Sheryl Sandberg, was that her name? Lean in.
Yeah.
Lean in. You fucking, first of all, okay, I guess some women have to lean in. Maybe they're the breadwinners.
Sure.
I understand it. But as a mother, as a human being, I don't know how you do it. I don't know how.
Well, I think it's also true for men, or it should be true for men too. Like when people talk about work-life balance, but what they're actually talking about is trade-offs. Like you can't have one thing without the cost of another thing. There's an opportunity cost to everything. So if you decide you're going to do this thing and you're going to be good at it, it requires sacrifices. And this guy's name's Austin Kleon. He lives in in Texas. He's great. He wrote this book, Steal Like an Artist.
Oh yeah, I love that.
Yeah, his thing is work, family, scene. Pick two.
Work,
family, and then like the scene, like the hangouts,
Polyamory.
the glamour. Yeah, exactly. He's like, pick two. You can pick two.
Right. You can either swing. Right. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree.
And so, yeah, there's like lots of cool perks that come with my job. Like I get offered to do shit, and it's just like sort of not even a question about whether I'm going to say yes or no, because like I already said yes to this other thing. Now, I guess in some relationships, the dude says yes to everything, and then somebody else picks up that slack.
Yes.
That seems kind of shitty to me. But.
Sorry, this guy. No, but on the other hand, our career is a little, show business is, there's a very finite window. So
yes.
Just don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I'm very happy my husband's making the bulk of the money. As he should right now. He's very funny too.
Yeah. But there's trade-offs.
There's 100%, and you have to choose which one you will take. And I think with children, I've heard this great saying that it's pay now or pay later with children. You invest at the top, or you pay the price later in adolescence and adulthood. Sure. And I'd rather be there. I just can't. But then again, my parents, I also overcorrect. I've been told, my therapist tells me I overcorrect because my parents were so boomer, self into themselves and into their polyamory. They weren't polyamorous, but you know what I mean. So now I'm trying to figure it out, honestly, and I don't malign anybody for choosing their career. That's not true. I secretly judge, but
I definitely don't judge when there's no choice.
I agree.
You know what I mean? These are at some level. This is kind of a champagne discussion. You know, like
what does that mean?
Like you know what a champagne problem is?
No.
Oh, champagne problem is like, do you want this champagne or that champagne? Like it's a rich white people problem.
Oh, sorry.
You know what I mean?
Yes, you're absolutely right. Yes.
This is a good problem to have.
100%.
You know, it's like, am I spending too much time with them? You know, when other people are like, I'm not sure I can pay the power bill. You know, like that's a different discussion.
Yes.
But when it's a choice, then you can be judged for the choice, I think.
Yeah. But then there are women that are like surgeons and stuff. And how the hell you don't okay, that's it. You're a surgeon. You can't lean out of that. Can you dip out of surgeoning for a decade?
Yeah.
You
sure,
can?
probably not. No.
Probably not.
Right.
Well, anyway, you choose your battles. You choose your heart, as your trainer says too, right?
Yes. Choose your heart. No, it's true.
You have a trainer.
But I think there is this because you can basically do anything and you're not supposed to judge people for doing stuff.
Oh, right.
People do get very caught up in just sort of basically what the philosophers just call it sort of the pursuit of empty pleasure, as though that's where meaning and happiness comes from, and it's not.
Well, then let's define empty pleasure, because this is an interesting distinction to make, because I've also developed an appreciation for the atelic events. Okay, so like there's teleological stuff
Sure.
that you do for an end.
Yes.
And then the atelic is like just sitting down and watching the leaves blow.
Sure.
And you're like, that's kind of rad, dude. I've really developed a real love of atelic activities. But is that the same as what you were saying?
No. I mean, I think that's funny, right? Like the word Epicurean, people think means sort of the pursuit of pleasure and like to the point of hedonism. So you go like, oh, this person's polyamorous, they're Epicurean, right? You would say that. But actually, like when you read Epicurus, he's like, what a delightful cup of water, you know? Or he's like, look at the leaves falling. Like you were just saying, he's getting excited about very basic pleasures, right? He's not like chasing fine foods or the fanciest, establishments or the, he's not participating in orgies or something. Like these are really basic pleasures. So I think those are available and accessible to anyone at any time, but people get really caught up in, like even Seneca writes about how he's like, people travel from place to place. He says, like someone flipping over their pillow trying to fall asleep.
Wow.
How you're just like, well, maybe it'll be better if it doesn't make no difference at all. It's totally in your head.
No.
And so I just know people who they're like, I really want to find someone. I really want to start a family. I want to really be happy. And then it's like, so stay in one fucking place for like a week. You know what I mean? This isn't like, stop breaking up with people,
right.
like 6 months into the relationship
right.
every time. Like life is about settling is the wrong word, but it's about making decisions and sticking with things.
Right. You choose it and then you stay the course. And in those struggles of the course is where you find, I don't even say happiness, some momentary glimpses, but really contentment, long-term fulfillment and contentment. I always loved Martin Heidegger, who loved the Greeks. The meaning of being is located in care. And I love this idea of where we lend our attention to, we lend our care to. It's a really cool word, like you lend your care to. And that is where you find the meaning of being, of living, is in care. Like, oh shit, so what I focus my attention on is really what's going to matter. It's not always going to be pleasurable. He didn't go into all that stuff what the Greeks are talking about. But yeah, and then also what you said reminded me of, like, remember those old hippies like Ram Dass? And they're always like, it's be here now. And then that was like, wherever you go, there you are.
Yes.
Wherever you go, there. And I never understood it until I got much older. And I was like, yeah, you're still going to have all this madness. It's all here. You may as well work it out with the same person that you trust in this circumstance that you've built, that you kind of, right, jibe with.
In Lady Bird, she's the nun says something like that. She goes like, "Isn't that what love is? Paying attention. It's like what you spend your time." Someone said that to me once. They said, love is spelled Time. And so it's like, you say you're doing it for your family, but like, what does your calendar look like?
Yeah.
Or you say you love, your work, but like, how much time are you actually spending on it?
Yeah. Well, I know so many, especially when you're a creative person, it's so difficult, to start that process of being a 20-something or a 30-something or whatever. And you're like, I think I want to be a singer, a comedian, a dancer, whatever. And it is a Herculean thing to get over the fear and the hump of that. And then the discipline of sitting down and doing that activity to get better at it and get better at it. Like The War of Art is my favorite book.
It's incredible.
I know you discussed that one too. You're a huge fan. There's a reason like that. It's the discipline, and in that disciplining yourself is where the
resistance,
fulfillment. Yeah.
Well, it's the procrastination is hard, and then also the putting. I think an underrated part of it is like the willingness to put yourself out there.
Oh,
like,
that's terrible. That's a whole other fucking discussion, man.
Yeah, just like you have to be bad in public for a while is so. It's why it's good to start when you're young. I think that's them. Yeah. It's why it's good to start when you're young.
Yeah.
Because you have less shame, or maybe a little more narcissism, a little more ego. It would be hard to start something that I'm embarrassingly bad at in public right now.
Oh my God. Well, I literally, when you were saying that, was thinking to like my first 5 years in stand-up.
Yeah.
And how grateful I am to have grown up in a non-social media.
Yeah, you weren't like, here's my clip. Yeah.
Or just like, or like someone else puts the clip up.
Sure.
I would be, like, I'm not one who saves all my old videos, my old stand-up. Like, I don't want to see it ever again.
Yeah.
I hate what I did last week. I hate what I did last year.
Sure.
But I always think about the Beatles too. They did their 10,000 hours. What is it in Germany? In that
bar.
Yeah. And I always think, imagine if YouTube had existed back then, and the Beatles started they're on hour 20 of the 10,000.
Yeah.
And they're like, look at my new band, mate. And all the comments are like, you guys suck. The Beatles are shit. And the Beatles probably would have been like, oh, I can't do this. This is garbage. Give up.
Yeah.
What if they gave up because of public opinion?
Ira Glass called it, he said there's a taste talent gap. So like you get interested in music or art or comedy or, anything, right? Sports. You love the thing, right? So you know who all the best people are. You know what all the best work is, right? And then you suck. And so, and you have good taste. You have a sense of what's good and what you're trying to do. And you are not physically, emotionally, like creatively capable of getting anywhere close to that thing. So one of the necessary skills or traits to get to mastery is the ability to live with that chasm, to like keep going, even though you're like every day, what you're expressing is not even good by your own standards.
No, and you're probably poor, because Tom and I were broke for a decade.
Yeah.
Like, pure Like I still won't shop at Trader Joe's because we lived off of Trader Joe's for like a decade. It was misery. And to deal with like the stress of the external world, the internal world, and to hang in there, and also the court of public opinion too.
Sure.
Sometimes club owners tell you suck. Sometimes other comics tell you suck, and to be like, no, I'm gonna stick to this. One day I will be good. One day I will be good.
But don't you think that's why ego is so common in most of the creative professions?
Yes.
Because early on, ego can be adaptive, right? Because the delusion allows you to keep going.
For sure.
So if you're talented but
So
egotistical, you can sort of push through what would make a more self-aware person just want to kill themselves.
Of course. Yeah,
But
the delusion.
then you get good, but now the ego thinks you're still better than you actually are, and you're a dick, and you think the world revolves around you, and you end up destroying what you've built because you're an egomaniac.
Right, that's the famous level.
Yes.
Sorry. And I've seen that happen so many times. That usually happens in comedians who get famous too quickly and their talent doesn't match their level of fame.
Yeah.
Now, thankfully, most of the time, comedy is a excruciatingly slow grind that takes about 15 years to get good, great, good-ish. 20 years you've made it, and if you haven't, something is amiss in your life.
Yeah.
Usually the cream rises to the top in our business, but yeah, thankfully it's that slowness of fame and that being poor and suffering for so long that you usually won't want to sabotage your success. I mean, if you look at a guy like Joe Rogan, who's been doing it for 30, 40 years now.
Yeah.
He had the slow, steady rise. And my husband and, it's the ones that get it too easy. It's too cheap.
Yeah, I think I started my first website in 2005, and my first book came out in 2012. And that was fast. That was fast. You know what I mean? Nobody gets to write a book when they're 25 or 26. Like, I was very, that was lucky. And then, they didn't really start selling until several years after that. And so, it took a while. It took a long time. It took a long time. And then you talk to people and they're like, I'm thinking about writing a book. And you're like, have you written literally anything else anywhere to any public audience? And the answer is no. It's like, you don't start, at the World Series.
No. And I love this thought of what you said, like, well, what makes you hang in there?
Yeah.
Some of it is ego, but then the other bit is, for at least comedy, passion.
You have to really like it.
A blinding, you have to be obsessed with stand-up. And I am obsessed. I still am. I love comedy. I love joke. I love failure. Now I'm on the other end of stand-up where I'm actually making a living and whatever, moving tickets. Great. It happened. Praise Allah. I can't believe it. So now actually is the fun where I go, I'm competent, and now let's flounder. Like, I'm working out this new bit. I want to make fun of this really touchy subject. How am I going to do it? And now I'm working it out. And I actually enjoy that rockiness of like, ooh, I got to solve this problem. It doesn't destroy me as it used to, because it used to like really cut into me like, oh my God, I'm not funny. I suck. I should quit. Now you just kind of go like, yeah, I should quit. No, I shouldn't. Just keep going. Because you build a resilience to failure, a tolerance for failure. People
talk about they go, trust the process, right?
Yeah.
And it's only actually that's very hard to do if you haven't experienced the process. So the first time I wrote a book, right, you're starting at zero, and then you're hoping you get to the end, and then it comes out and it works. But you have no idea what's between these 2 points. Then the second book, you have some sense. You're like, okay, it's hard for a while, and then but now I've done it so many times that I get excited about starting a new book because I not only get excited about the process of starting fresh, getting to do it again, but I don't get that discouraged throughout the process because I'm like, there's always the point where you think it's not going to work. There's always the point where you hate yourself. There's always the point where you get distracted. You start thinking about other stuff. I know all the sort of peaks and valleys of the process, so I can be like, yeah, if I just keep showing up every day, eventually I'll get there.
Yes. And also, because I was listening to you talk about that on a prior episode of just showing up every day. Same with stand-up. The reason people are like, why do comics get paid so much? They're just telling jokes. It's like, yeah, well, if you're selling tickets and people have paid and committed to coming to see you and your dog died that day, you're still going to have to go up and be funny. Sure. You find out your mom's diagnosed with cancer, guess what, bitch? You're telling jokes that night because that's show business. So the ability to be funny on command, that comes from this tolerance that you're talking about of failure. But anyway, that's fucking gnarly, dude. The self-loathing. And showing up. Sorry,
Yes.
that's what I'm saying. The showing upness. But some days suck so bad creatively, and you're in your head and you hate everything and you hate yourself. And I think some days I'll just be like, I can't. I shouldn't even touch this. I'm poison.
That's
I'm
like
poison.
an extra level of mastery, because early on, if you listen to that excuse, like I'm not feeling it today, then you never do it, right? Because you never feel it. And then you get a little bit older and more experienced. The way that an athlete goes, my knee's feeling a little weird today. I don't want to blow out my knee, so I'm not going to push this. I'm going to go rehab, or I'm going to do this other thing and watch film instead. So it's like at the beginning you have to cultivate this muscle of like, I force through anyway.
Yes.
And then older, I was actually just writing about this. The motto of the Royal Air Force is something like ad astra. It's ad astra is what it's shortened to, but the Latin motto is basically something like through adversity to the stars. And the writer, I had him on, his name is S.C. Gwynn. He's this amazing Texas writer. He was talking about how, yes, that's like obviously how you succeed. He's like, that's also how you like crash and die.
Yes.
And so you have to cultivate, you go like, we didn't pass the checklist today. We're going to send the plane back for repairs, or the weather is looking a little, let's not do this. And so, as you get older and more experienced and better at it, knowing when to push and when to step back is its own, that's another part of the process.
It's an art form too. And there are some days where I'm like, I should not be texting people back. Today is the day I will not email back. I will not be returning your phone calls. Mommy needs to go out on the lake or whatever, look at my leaves, or be with the kids, or not be with the kids, sit alone in my weird book room and just get weird. But that's also part of a creative process too, because your brain is like sometimes solving or working through stuff. Don't you think like those dark days are kind of imperative to the creative days? Because after I have a dark spell, then like all the creative stuff comes out.
As I've gone on I used to be like, okay, I got to write for a certain number of time per day, or I got to get a certain number of pages per day, or now I just try to make one positive contribution every day.
Smart.
So like today, I literally changed one sentence in this book that I'm working on, and so like I succeeded. I showed up. Like I can't do that every day. Some days I need to do a lot more, but I just radically lower the bar to a level that like I just do one thing. And so I'm always making a contribution, and who knows, that contribution might matter to someone, or it adds up. But also just the idea of like, I'm going to make it low enough that I can never accept procrastination, and then always feel like I'm creating momentum, I'm making progress.
God, you just said something that procrastination, I've watched people very close to me really wreck their lives. I'm talking lives on procrastination, not just career stuff. I'm talking like, should we have a baby? I don't know. And there's a time limit. Mm-hmm. Things are very time limited. You're not here forever.
Yes. There's an arrogance to procrastination.
Ooh, let's talk about that. That's exciting.
Well, the Stoics would say you're assuming that tomorrow is a given.
Yes.
But you could get hit by a bus.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For the aliens could come tomorrow, our new overlords.
Yeah.
And that's that.
Sure. Or your window could close, like you're talking about, biologically or just career-wise.
Oh, that's terrifying.
Yeah, the trend could change. A lot of stuff could happen. The economy could crash.
Oh, yeah. That's why I loved the existentialists when I was in college, because they talk about that. Like, this is it, dude. This is not a drill.
And I feel like the existentialists particularly they were European, French. So they saw 2 world wars, like real close together, and a lot of them died, and it was fucking horrible. Yeah. And so I think that sort of hung over their sense of the world, which, as crazy as things have been here, the last decade or so, you really can't. It's still, things have felt very stable and very comfortable and very nerve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, COVID sucked, I'm not going to lie, but it wasn't the same as a world war. Yeah. And my husband's really been into World War II now. Yeah. He's watching all the That's how you know you're a dad,
Yeah,
is
of
when
course.
you're into World War II.
When your kids get you Costco books about World War II.
The thickies.
Yes.
Yeah, the toilet reading.
Yes.
Dad toilet reading is like Hitler stuff. Yeah, that's real tragedy. That's real life. Your country is just shredded. Tragedy.
Seneca's thing was the one thing all fools have in common is that they're always getting ready to start.
Ooh. I've seen that too. I've seen that.
Tomorrow. I'll do it later. Or I'll do it after my kids grow up, or I'll do it when I retire, or I'll do it when I make a little more money. I'll do it when the economy, or what people have been saying from COVID, when things go back to normal.
Yeah, and they never follow up.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think, because I remember dealing with procrastination in the beginning of my career too. And then something flipped. Maybe like, I think because I saw I think what it was is like you realize the process of like, you write a half hour, you write an album, you write an hour. Like there's a project.
Yeah.
And you have to have your project completed. So now you have something to work towards versus just this infinite, I'm going to be a writer. Well, like, no, dude. Start with like writing a short story. Maybe it just starts there and then go to like, just write. I know how daunting it must be to write a book. I can't even imagine like all these chapters, the table of contents. How do I, what, dude? Like, I don't even know
where
where
the table of contents. They do that for you. But...
Oh. Or like an outline? Like,
yeah, of course.
I don't know.
Sure.
I don't know where my mind's going to go unconsciously in this process.
I am jealous. What comedy has going for it that not many of the other arts do is that you can get your reps the easiest, and it's the most built around getting your reps.
Yes.
Like I have to give a talk tomorrow, and I haven't given one in 6 weeks. There's no way there's no other talk. Like I can't, like, because in my line of work, basically all the gigs are corporate gigs. So I can't just go like do a warm-up corporate gig. You know what I mean? Like I can't.
Hey guys, thanks for coming. At the
I could
coffee
just
house.
show up at some random business and go like, I want to talk to everyone. So like what's cool about comedy is not just that you're supposed to go up every night, but like you're supposed to go up multiple times a night in some cases. So you're just like, you're always practicing it. Even the best people are demonstrating the fact that like you're all supposed to be practicing at a certain level. And there's this sort of equalizing effect of like someone who sells out stadiums and someone who's trying to, make it are both performing at the same club for the same amount of time.
On the same stage.
Yeah.
I mean, even right now I'm working out a new hour and I do it very quietly here in Austin at the Mothership. I'll do the small room.
Yeah.
And yeah, I love that part though. I mean, look, I don't know. That is maybe one of the few art forms. Yeah. We're all comrades. We're all in the trenches together. And I've heard some of the biggest comedians you know of say the most behind closed doors. Be like, oh my God, I'm the worst. I hate myself. And you're like, really? You hate yourself? If you hate yourself, then I'm golden. I can't believe it. So-and-so hates themselves. Like, it's just getting over this.
Yeah.
Really,
well, and you practice, I think it looks effortless to the audience, but everything has been done hundreds of times, hundreds and hundreds of times.
And the easier it looks, the better the person is that's doing it.
Yeah.
It's like surfing. You're like, dude, that shit looks so easy. Like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
It's so hard to surf. Yeah. I was trying to think of what you were talking about during World War II.
Oh, the existentialists. They saw the whole world just
dark.
Yeah.
Oh, but what I loved about them and what changed my life, and I think what's interesting about the Stoics too is that it's really, if you read them, you're like, oh, did this guy like develop psychology and psychotherapy?
Yeah,
like
independently, yes.
Like the Greeks had it figured out.
Yeah.
The Greeks really had it, and then the French came along, that fucking Descartes, and ruined everything. And he was like, actually, how do we know we can even trust our own minds? And everybody was like, dude, what are you doing? We had this shit figured out. And now every idiot's like, yeah, how can I trust this is a simulation? Like, okay, even if it is a simulation.
What are you going to do with that information?
Who cares? It still feels as real as the real. So like, fucking let's move on, Frenchie. But what I do love is Jean-Paul Sartre is what he said is that existence precedes essence. Whereas prior it was essence, right, precedes existence. That this acorn is going to develop in a certain way no matter what. Like you're kind of predetermined. Your essence, the Greeks were big into this stuff, the essence of whatever animal, the essence, the soul, the anima, and then that determines everything else. But he flipped it and he was like, no, you can you're not determined by your past. Just because you're in the shape of a woman doesn't mean you have to act like a woman, or just because you're of your race or your whatever, you can be whatever the hell you want. And I was like, oh, you mean I'm not my crummy family?
Yeah.
Like I'm not tethered to, I'm not doomed or cursed because of my upbringing or blah, blah, blah. It was very liberating.
I've joked about this with Epictetus, who's the Stoic who was a slave. And
oh my God, Epictetus?
Yeah.
I never even heard of this guy.
Yeah. It's funny. Even Epictetus never questions like the institution.
Epictetus?
Epictetus.
Epic.
That's how I say it.
Okay.
Other people say it differently, I guess.
Oh,
But
Titus, Epitatus, Epitito.
he's dead. Who cares?
He's fucking dead.
You know? Yeah. But and his name just means acquired one. Like he doesn't even have an actual person's name. But he never questions slavery. Like he's like, here's how you make it work inside slavery. So I do think when I look at the Greeks and the Romans, who I like a lot, one thing I always try to remind myself is that they had much less sense of agency or dynamism. Like even Marcus Aurelius, he becomes emperor. He doesn't want to. He's just like, they made me the emperor, you know. Like he didn't go like, yeah, you know, you can. Your dad doesn't like get to pick what you do, you know. Like there was a sense then that like, you know, like if your dad does this, you do this, and if your family does this, and the idea that like you could start a company and, you know, create generational wealth. This was all incomprehensible to the ancients. So it's not until much later, you know, really probably the 1800s, 1900s, that the idea that like your life could be anything you wanted it to be, like there's no real philosophical understanding of that until kind of like post-war America, right? And so I think that's a great invention. That's a great invention that you can do whatever you want, and that like society, race, gender, etc. It's all bullshit.
Yes.
Go where you want, live where you want, do things how you want. That's not. The Romans didn't. Would the Romans be like, what? No, if you're born a slave, you're a slave or whatever. You know, like.
Thank you.
Yeah.
God damn! And then did they really send them into the lions? Is that real?
Send the Christians to the lions?
Did they send the Christians?
Well, I mean, yeah, the gladiators obviously fought in the arena, and then later that was supposedly a punishment for the Christians.
For the Christians, like, these Christians are so annoying.
Yeah.
Is that what it was? They were just annoying?
No, it was just a way. It's like, how are we going to punish these criminals? And like, let's watch them fight in the
Which is
arena.
so rad. I love their hedonic sense, right?
Yes.
Weren't they like effing a lot and puking and eating and puking, and then
Yes.
they had a real sense of hedonism. I'm sorry, I'd like to get a pen because then I forget my ideas.
Oh, all right.
Do you have a pen, Mommy?
Yeah, sure.
Why were they like that? Is it because it was a pre-Christian society?
I think so. There wasn't also a sense of like, I don't know, that every human being, like, it's important. We've made a lot of inventions that like each person is, you know, deserves dignity and respect and equality.
Such a new idea.
These are new ideas, you know, like
So new.
Totally.
People don't like. I remember reading Hobbes and Locke.
Yeah.
So what is that? 1800s?
1700s?
Even before.
1700s,
Okay, so
yeah.
there are couple of
Yeah.
Brits.
Yeah.
And one is like, life, liberty, and property. That's where it starts.
Yeah.
The pursuit of happiness, is that even...
That's a Jefferson invention.
Yeah, that's later on.
Yeah.
So the origins of the American dream are like, you get life, liberty, and property. You should own stuff. Stuff is the most important shit. And then later, Americans was like, all right, you can be happy. Like, you should do what the fuck you want to do. Very recent in humanity.
Totally.
How interesting.
Yeah, and even that, like, one of the things that's always like an interesting is like how many offenses were punishable by death when they were writing this, and it's like sneezing punishable by death, you know, or whatever. Like, so I think that I've always this is a cancelable
Sure. Let's do
thing.
it.
But like when you go like, how could they have slaves? And it's like, well, also like the punishment for like stealing a piece of bread was like, you know, death or slavery. So like, you know, man's inhumanity to man, when everyone treats everyone shitty, I think it was harder to go like, hey, I'm not going to treat someone shitty, you know? So there's just a general cruelty and heartlessness. I think it's important that we realize that that is contagious. And one of the reasons we developed politeness and manners and even like political correctness is that it matters. Like it's part of the elimination of violence and cruelty.
As long as we're not canceling comedians for making jokes. That is my pet peeve. Don't come after us. That's nonsense. It's all meant to point out absurdities. Nobody's advocating hate. Shit, what is it?
Epictetus says, if you find yourself offended, remember you are complicit in taking offense.
Ooh, ain't that the truth?
Yeah.
And imagine the hubris, is that the right word? To be like, I'm offended. Like, oh, you're so important. You're so important that you get to be offended by fucking what? Words?
Yeah,
Good
sure.
for you, shithead. Oh, yeah, I was thinking of Foucault's Discipline and Punish. Did you ever read that one? So Foucault, I mean, I like Foucault because he's this like fun gay guy, right? French, obvi fun. And he talks about how we became civilized, this idea of the public scaffolds. Remember, like back in the day, what you're saying, like somebody stole a loaf of bread in the market. Who's going to watch them get drawn and quartered?
Yeah.
Woohoo! And then you'd bring your kids, and your kids they push the kids to the front. So
Think about what that would do to your 6-year-old to watch someone get chopped into 4 pieces. Like,
oh my God.
yeah.
That's gnarly. And I'm even wary of him playing like Roblox if the game is too violent or whatever. Yeah, so you're watching people get violently punished. But the civilizing element is to put the punishment behind closed doors, is what he says. Like, yes, we still murder people.
Yeah.
We'll give the lethal injection, but it's behind closed doors. We're very civilized about how we kill now, which is lovely. Yeah.
Can comedy be funny?
What?
Or sorry. Can philosophy be funny?
Yeah. There's some, oh my God, Nietzsche. Probably one of the funniest writers. If you, read Nietzsche. Read his one-liners. I'm trying to think of there's one good one. Men love 2 things most, danger and play. And he loves women because she is the most dangerous of playthings.
That's pretty good.
That's a good one. It's not funny, but it was just one that just came off.
That's funny.
Yeah, and he hated women, which always makes me laugh too. But I think it's that he was so harmed and hurt by women. His own sister, supposedly, wasn't she like, I don't know if you know, but kept him hidden in bed or whatever. He was sickly. He had syphilis. He'd gotten syphilis from a hooker. And the French are really funny. Not the Germans, not so much. They're very strict, very stringent.
I think that thing from Camus is funny where he's like, should I kill myself or have a cup of coffee? And it's like, that's fucking life.
Yeah.
Like, it's such a perfect existential question that's both brilliant and like commonplace. Do you know, like it's so high and low at the same time?
Oh, yeah. You know, Dostoevsky, I love Notes from Underground. The opening to it, he's like, I'm an ugly man. I'm a mean man or whatever. My teeth hurt. And he likes to poke the tooth that hurts because it gives him joy to hurt himself. And you know, because you do that. Like you get a little boo-boo and you pick at it, and there's something satisfying in that self-harm, that tiny bit of self-harm. Yeah, I like that too. Yeah, they're funny, but not all of them. Yeah, the English are. No, you know who's really funny? Barclay. Wait, who wrote Why I'm Not a Christian? He was an English guy. He was really funny too. Yeah.
You know, one of the Stoics died of laughter.
No.
Yeah.
Impossible.
Yeah, his name was Chrysippus. And I ask every comedian that's interested in Stoicism if they can explain it to me. So the idea is he's sitting on his porch, and this donkey walks up into his front yard, and it starts eating these figs out of his garden. And the person walks up and goes like, I'm so sorry, you know, and Chrysippus says, you should get your donkey some wine to wash down those figs. And then he starts laughing at his own joke, and he laughs so hard for so long that he dies. He's just like, so is it a you had to be there joke? Is it something that I'm not understanding? Is it some philosophical lesson? But I love that we think of the Stoics as being like dour and you know, not fun. And here this dude literally laughs himself to death on his own joke that's not even funny.
I think it's a cautionary tale for comedians. Like you kind of don't want to laugh at your own material that hard. Maybe that's what it is. Like, it's so shameful. Like, I see it as shameful. I'm like, ew, don't laugh at your own joke that hard.
Yeah, or it's
kind of douchey, you know?
Or it's just like the things that make us laugh the hardest are never actually that funny. You know, like they're not these elaborate premise, you know, like multi-part, like high jokes.
No.
It's somebody points at something and that thing is funny, or somebody farts or whatever. Like, you know what I mean? The most ridiculous things are the funniest.
Of course. Like yeah, okay, well, what makes you laugh without fail?
My kids, I mean, of course,
Yeah?
they're insane. Yeah. The one my wife and I laugh about all the time, we were sitting at this pool in my in-laws neighborhood, and we're all sort of sitting around eating, and my son walks up and he goes, and he throws this thing on the table, and he goes, "Is this the dead bird that you were talking about?" And it was a dead bird that he'd picked up off the ground. And to this day, we can't.
Were you talking about it?
Yeah, we were not talking about a dead bird. We don't know why he picked up the dead bird. And he said it was such, like, I found the thing you were looking for. You know, there's just moments like that. Like, if I had died laughing in that moment, I would have understood what Chrysippus was going.
Yeah.
For.
Yeah, it's so absurd, the absurdity of that. And it tickled you in such a way because you're like, I wasn't talking about it. But like, what was your reaction? Was it,
I was like, what is happening? What?
Yeah.
First off, it's like, shit, you just touched a dead bird. You put it on the table, we're eating. Now I have to like sanitize your entire body. And like also, are you a psychopath? Did you kill this bird?
Yeah, that's
you know,
that's always
there's
the
a
worrisome
bunch of
bit.
things. But just the, what?
They're so mentally ill. Small children,
Yes.
they act like crazy people. Yeah, it's so funny to me. You know what? This is so horrible, and I'm totally going to get canceled for this too. But if you've ever watched Your Mom's House, it's like, it's always a stream. We call them cool guys, of weirdos, of people that are, I call them outliers, the marginalized community on TikTok, the weird beards. Those people make me laugh so hard. Like, God, this is so inappropriate. You're probably just going to cut this out. But there was this one girl, she was doing vlogs to Hitler on YouTube. She'd be like, "Hey, Hitler. So Nathaniel says," we're like, "What? A vlog to Hitler." Sorry. It's so funny. That made me laugh for years. Like, that kind of stuff. But not the but-bump joke.
Yes,
Very,
right.
very rarely. There's a few that stick out in my head, yeah. Like, David Tell is a great joke writer. Like,
yes.
David Tell will make me laugh for years. You think of a line, you're like, God, that was so funny.
Yes. Do you watch TikToks? Or
I'm obsessed.
I only watch Instagram reels of TikToks.
Oh, why aren't you on the Pure Thing?
I don't know. I'm afraid of it. I'm afraid that once I start, I won't be able to stop.
Yeah.
Because it's so addicting. And the algorithm is so good.
Oh, it's so good.
And like, Sam will sometimes just have to come by and just go, and I'll go, "Thank you so much."
Just unplug you from the Matrix.
Yes.
TikTok, here's why it's valuable to society. I agree. I don't care for like the dances.
Yes.
None of that stuff interests
Yeah.
me. But like during the pandemic,
Sure.
I would go on TikTok and people be like, in Queens, Brooklyn, or whatever, Queens, New York, people will be like, "Oh my God, these are the bodies right now being dragged into an ambulance." I know, I'm sorry to do the voice, but you're like, "Oh my God, this is a real pandemic."
Yeah,
or like,
sure.
when stuff happens in the world, I go to TikTok because that's just the average person going, "Hey, this is happening," versus like CNN or Fox News, which, I mean, I don't know. Does anybody even trust?
I don't know
anymore?
anyone that watches television news that isn't like a million years old.
It's like people who are watching sitcoms on like NBC still.
Yeah, like tuning in for an all new episode of This Is Us or what?
Watching this.
Yeah.
It's awful. I know.
I listened to this interview with the head of Viacom or something, maybe it's Paramount, whatever the one that does the TV is, and they were talking about the person was like, "Why do you just air like 13 episodes of ridiculousness in a row?" The Rob Dyrdek show, who I know, I've had him on the show.
Rob.
He's great.
Yeah.
But like, he was like, because
so
the
smart.
people who he's like, because the people who care about what they watch are not turning on TV. So he's just like, what happens is basically like somebody turns on MTV and then they just don't turn it off. And they don't seem to change the channel when ridiculousness is on. So we just pack the whole day with that. And yeah, you just realize there's different levels of consuming stuff. And the worst thing you can do for your brain is watch the actual news.
Oh,
I think reading the news
so.
is okay. But I think anyone that is getting their news from television is just rotting their brain.
Yes. First of all, let's point out there is some value in background TV. I like Netflix. Sometimes I'll be so brain dead that I'll be like, what's like the dumbest thing I can put on? Like I'll watch Mean Girls. I like Mean Girls. It's a great movie. But just have it on in the background so I can like text to people. But yeah, I agree. It's because the news is mostly hysteria based. It's the language and the tonality. It's intended to create hysteria. Yeah. Whereas if you watch the news, like I actually, when the shit hits the fan on something, I'll download Al Jazeera on my iPhone and see what those folks are saying. I'll be like, oh, this is clearly.
When I'm at like the airport, like CNN has a deal with most major airports, and they pay for CNN to be on in the airport. There's a special version of CNN.
What?
Yeah, it's like airport CNN, and so for instance, like they never show airplane crashes. There's like certain things that it's edited.
Makes sense.
Right, but the idea is like, if you catch it, if like that's running, you will not be able to turn away. You'll, even if there's no sound, you just, so like when I'm at the airport, I have to like physically turn away. That's how much I don't watch
like
the
this
news.
Orwellian TV, like that just can see you wherever you are.
And then you just see something to be outraged. And like, I think I see it like when you turn on the commentary shows on ESPN.
God,
you see how you see the formula that they're doing, and it's so laughably stupid that you realize that that's also what the news. It's like, is LeBron James the worst basketball player of all time? You're like, what? Are people discussing that? And then like, yeah, they talked about it for an hour because it's so aggravating, and it requires a straight man. It requires Stephen A. Smith to be like, yeah, I have strong thoughts on this, and so like that's the whole thing. They need, it's like professional wrestling is basically what you're watching. So like what I find, like if something's happening, like a pandemic is I want to read a book about a different pandemic from like 100 years ago.
100%.
And then I'll go, oh, okay. I get the broad strokes. So now when I get like current information, I know where it slots in to the general framework of like how humans respond to stuff.
Brilliant, because Dr. Drew during the pandemic was like, you have to read this book. What is it, like The Hysteria of the Masses or something of the masses? It's about like how that the dissemination of information lends to hysteria and what happens and blah blah blah. I'm like, oh yeah, it all just repeats. History's on a loop.
Yes.
And yeah, it
and
is.
People respond the same way.
We're like, wait a minute, we've never had this happen. Like, actually, we have.
Yeah, literally, exactly 100 years ago, the exact same thing happened.
Well, even now and I think it's calming down, but even with, the monitoring of people's language, the cancel culture, the monitoring and the canceling. You didn't like what that person said in 2008 on Twitter. I mean, this is how it ramped up to communism. I don't know. My dad's always telling me about that because he grew up in Hungary, and he's like, this is how it starts. I remember when Michael Richards got canceled for dropping the N-bomb at the Laugh Factory, which obviously I don't agree with.
Yeah, didn't he just scream the N-word like a lot of times at a black person for no reason?
Just one. Yeah. But I remember that, the outrage and and my dad was like, oh, here we go. Another cycle of this stuff once it starts happening. And I was like, yeah. But anyway. And then Trump happened. That was weird. Yeah. And I don't know what's going to happen now. When the aliens land in 2026, I think it is. When are they landing? Will any of it matter?
Yeah, it's life is always fucking nuts. That's what you get when you study history. Like, it's always been fucking nuts. And that there was like that's what I think it was very obvious the last couple of years. It's like, oh, this is what living through history is like. Because you think about history as being this kind of settled thing.
Right.
And then you go, no, first off, it wasn't. Like we only know that they won World War II after. But like there were lots of moments where it looked like that wasn't going to happen.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And so, or like, the civil rights protesters won. But like most people didn't think they were going to win, and most people didn't think they should win. Like overwhelmingly, public opinion was not on their side, and so like understanding that history was once the present, and the next day or the next step, none of that was like preordained or for certain.
That guy just blew my mind, bro. You just blew my fucking mind open.
What, about the civil rights movement?
No. Wait, the blacks have freedom? Yeah, no. Because, like, I was thinking, actually, the last 6 weeks about I was like, do we actually live in a crazier time now? Or have there always been strange times? And then I watched this documentary about Marilyn Monroe, and it talked about how both the Kennedy brothers were banging her at the same time, meaning the president of the United States and his brother would tag team Marilyn Monroe. And you're like, that's crazy, bro.
Yeah.
And kind of everybody knew it, and it was swept under the rug, and then she dies, and then they scrub her apartment so that nobody...
When Kennedy's like on these terrible drugs all the time, like because he had this crippling back pain, they would like inject him with this. He was like basically a drug addict.
Wild.
Or just in 1968, there were 2,000 terrorist bombings in the United States. And now if one thing happens, we're like, what? You know, this is not normal. And it's like in 2,000 terrorist bombings.
It's wild. And you don't, but how do we not, but I don't hear about them.
Right.
It's not on TikTok. I don't know about it.
Well, yeah, people don't know history. Even the people who are on the news don't know this stuff. They because they're just reading off a fucking teleprompter.
Yeah.
Right. They don't know this stuff. And so because you don't know history, everything seems unprecedented and abnormal and unsurvivable and crazy, and it wasn't.
But except for the aliens, I'm telling you, those congressional hearings, I mean, that should freak everybody out, and nobody is like...
I don't know. That guy was just basically like, you know, a lot of people have told me there's programs where we have aliens. So, like, what? I feel like
nobody's responding. Nobody is like, is that why is everyone sharing your opinion? Like, you think like that's second hand, third hand?
Yeah, I just feel like extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence.
Got you.
And he's just like, I feel like if this were true, why would they let him do it?
Let him do it. Let him testify?
Yeah.
Well, the way I heard it, I mean, this sounds so stupid, but they're like, yeah, there was just a day available, and they took it. Like, it was like...
No, I'm saying if there's this top secret program they don't want anyone to know about.
Right.
Wouldn't this dude just be disappeared?
Yeah, I think they did try to. And he also passed a legislation to protect him or something. There's been like a whole ramp up.
Yeah, there's some like whistleblower protections.
Right. But has this been in history?
About aliens?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, for like a long time, people have been speculating about.
Oh, Roswell.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
But have there... Yeah.
I mean, there does seem like there's some weird shit that we don't know about.
Yeah.
Is it actually aliens, or is it something that's actually maybe the argument is that the reason they want us to talk about them being aliens is it's actually something scarier they don't want us to be talking about, which is like the Chinese have some fucking super weapon, or you know what I mean? Like it could just be something much more pedestrian but actually more terrifying.
Sure.
Or it could be it's something that we have, and they would also rather people... Like, I thought that was interesting. You know, when when that submarine collapsed, the Titanic, and then afterwards the Navy was like, "Oh yeah, we heard it collapse, and we just didn't want to tell you." Like, and you're just like, wait. So the Navy can just hear sounds 2 miles under the water, just in fucking the middle of nowhere. They're just monitoring this at all times. And so I had two thoughts, which one is they didn't hear anything, and that's just a night. It's like you tell your kids, like, I'm always watching. I saw what you were doing. You know, it's that. Or they really do have incredible capacities. And I was talking to this guy I know who's like a general, and he was like that corridor, like where the Titanic is. I forget the acronym, but that's the corridor where like Russia would come down towards America. So he's like, that's like one of the most intensely monitored places in the world. And
yet they couldn't find it?
Well, they couldn't find, like, in the sense that they hear things that are happening, and then, you know, within a couple of days they tracked it down. But they're not just like, they're not like, no one else is there. But the idea is they're monitoring. So they heard this suspicious sound, which they were able to date to the thing later collapsing. But like the idea is that that's a very monitored place. But I have no idea about the aliens. But
man, I really hope they exist. Help straighten some stuff out.
We were talking about work-life balance earlier. One of the things I think, and then ties back to what we were talking about earlier. Have you heard this term art monsters?
No.
Do you know what an art monster is? It's from some woman, I'm forgetting her name, but she was like, my dream is to become an art monster. Meaning, she's like, not care about anything but making my stuff. That it's easy to become totally consumed, totally one-sided, to care about nothing but like your own success. And I think a lot of the greats were that.
I agree. I'll tell you, Vince Lombardi. There's a documentary we watched on Vince Lombardi. I'm the greatest coach of all time. And you're like, okay, I get it. So he's the greatest guy on the planet. The guy never sees his family.
Yeah.
He works 7 days a week. His life is shit.
Yeah.
And it's all in sacrifice of what? Right. To be in a documentary that airs posthumously. Like,
sure.
And by the way, Sic transit gloria, I learned that from Rushmore. Glory fades.
Mm-hmm. All glory is fleeting.
There you go. So, like, you work for this immortal status, fame, glory, and the shit goes away in a generation. There are comedians that I cherished that if you would ask a kid that works in your bookstore, they got no idea who Phyllis Diller is, or George Carlin, even, who was huge. So, to what end? To what sacrifice? You sacrifice everything for greatness.
In Meditations, Marcus Aurelius says, the thing about posthumous fame is that you won't be around to enjoy it. And then he goes, it's also worth remembering that the people in the future will also be as dumb and stupid and as annoying as the people who are alive right now.
Most definitely.
So, like, what do you care that much about being beloved by people 7 generations from now? It doesn't bring you back from the dead, and also they still suck.
They still suck. Everybody's still stupid and watching How I Met Your Mother on 8 o'clock show. Yeah, I mean, I agree. What's the point? And I kind of, so I broke my ankle 2 years ago, and I talk about this on my last special, but I read a joke about it. But the truth is, they gave me a shit ton of ketamine.
Yeah.
And in my K-hole, as they call it, I've never done ketamine before. I was deeply tripping, and I thought I was dying. I really did. I was like, I think this is it, man. And I wasn't thinking about my career. I wasn't stoked that I had so many specials on Netflix or that I had this successful anything. I was literally thinking about my children and my husband. Mm-hmm. My children and my husband.
Yeah.
And it got real narrow real quick. And I came out of that, and anytime I catch myself getting on this kick of like, I should be bigger, I should do arenas too, I should be, I go like, oh, I'm gonna die, and it doesn't matter, and my kids are the only ones who are really gonna give a shit anyway.
And so you also might as well, it doesn't mean you shouldn't do it, but you should also enjoy it while you're doing it, as opposed to seeing it as a means to another end or the next thing, right? If it's like, I'm doing this theater show, so one day I'll be able to do arena shows, and then if I'm do the best arena shows, then I'll be the great. You're not actually liking it as you're doing it. It's all this delayed gratification for some thing that you don't ultimately get.
I know. What is the get? What is it?
I don't know.
Because I've had rungs of success, and you have too, and every time you hit that rung, you go, oh, cool.
Yeah.
Is that all there is?
Yes.
Oh shit, cool. Okay. Is that all there is? Like it's a constant. It's like that song. Is that all there is? Right? Is that all there is, my friends? Then let's keep dancing. You kind of realize like that's it, dude.
I interviewed Rainn Wilson yesterday, and he was saying that like for like 3 seasons of The Office, he wasn't thinking, I'm I have one of the greatest characters on one of the greatest shows of all time. He was like, why aren't these movies I'm doing working? You know, like why did John Krasinski get this? You know, he was thinking about that. And so you end up robbing yourself of the wonderfulness of whatever the rung you're currently at.
The miraculousness of your existence. Yeah. You should not even be here by all accounts. It's pretty random.
This is insane.
It's insane. We're on this rock in this room with these books, blah, blah, blah. Weird, weird, weird.
Yeah.
And then like, you get to do the thing you dreamt of doing.
Yeah.
It's bananas. I sometimes with Tom, we'll be like, we'll be on your mom's house laughing at fart videos. And I'll be like, can you believe we get to do this? Like, this is rad. It's a miracle.
Yeah. I remember I was like, if I could write one book, like that was my thing. If I could publish a book, not like this many books to sell this, it was a book. And then you're so far past that, but you just move the goalpost. You either forget the goalposts or you move them, and so you never actually feel like you made it, even though you made it many, many, many times over.
Many, many, many times. You know, sometimes if I am doing a theater and I'm like, oh, I just fucking sold this bitch out. And like, I'm so pumped, but I don't want that excitement to spill into my performance, because then you're too geeked when you're up there, and it's like, who wants to watch that guy? So sometimes, this is so stupid, I will set aside time to just be stoked about that achievement.
Sure.
I'll be like, you can get pumped about like this whole thing.
Yeah.
Like before the gig, like an hour before, and then once you're there, you're calm and you're just in yourself and you're centered and you're the comedian, you're an artist,
Yes.
So that you don't get the two, like, I don't know.
Yeah, you don't want to be self-conscious, like in your own head about it. Like you have to, but you should also not just like, yeah. This fucking awesome thing.
Yeah, because yeah. Like, oh man, that sucks too. Like, don't just yeah, whatever. That's not fair either, because it's huge if you get to do anything in life you want.
I remember someone said something nice to me, and someone else was standing there, and I was like, oh, cool, thanks. And then they were like, no. Take the compliment.
Take the compliment.
Like, and I think about that. It's like, just because it makes you a little uncomfortable or it's weird, like you're deliberately not allowing yourself to feel it or hear it, because you're trying to be humble, or you don't want it to go to your head, or it makes you uncomfortable or whatever, but you're not actually being present for the thing that you worked very hard for, and then what you're focusing on is the next thing instead, so you're never actually arriving.
I know. How do we defeat that? What did the Stoics say about that?
Well, I think that sort of memento mori of like, hey, you're going to die is a nice way to sort of root yourself in the moment. Like, this could be the last one that I ever do. That's so crazy. I should be here for this, right? Like, I shouldn't be not feeling this because I want to feel a better one later. Like, I should actually be here for this thing.
Oh, yeah.
I think that, I think people think meditating on your mortality is very depressing or it empties things of significance, but it actually has the exact opposite. It allows you to go like, this is all there is, and it's fucking wonderful, and so I'm going to be grateful for it, and this moment is like my whole life.
Yeah.
This one thing in front of me is all led up to this. This is all there is, and so I'm just going to be present for it.
Mm-hmm. Tom always makes fun of me because I'm always like, you're gonna die. You know that you're gonna fucking die. So, and he's like, God, calm down, because I'm so like Eastern blocky about it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's very liberating to fully accept that. And I, especially as we age, like I just turned 47. I'm like, dude, I'm looking down the barrel of 50. Like, how did that happen?
Yeah.
Whoa. And who am I now? Because, you're just the sum of your past experiences. But like, you're supposed to stay present, and I don't know. I don't add up to my past, because who I was 20 years ago is not who I am now.
Sure,
it's really hard for the human brain to reconcile.
Well, one of the things the Stoics talk about is the idea that death isn't this thing that it's at the end, but that death is happening always. Yeah. And so you go, okay, I'm 36, so I've died 36 years.
Dude.
And then you're like, oh, yeah, right. It's not this thing you do once, but like time that passes is dead, the Stoics would say. Like, it's gone forever. And so if you think actually as death as being this thing that's constantly happening, first off, it makes you a much more diligent in protecting your time. Like, I'm not going to agree to this dumb thing that you're asking me to do.
100%.
I'm not going to wait in line. Or I can wait in line, or I can pay $100 to not wait in line. I'll pay $100 to not wait in line. It doesn't
every time.
Yeah, every time. Because I'm just, time is the most valuable thing.
Yeah.
And then also though that like your experience, like who you are in this moment is all that there is, as opposed to like, I'm saving it for later, right? That I'll do it when I retire or whatever.
Yeah.
It might not happen. And, is it worth wasting 50 years of your life to have 25 years of your life that you enjoy or like?
Yeah, it's something so stupid, even down to the clothing I choose sometimes, because I'm like you ever buy something really good, like really expensive and fancy and nice, and you're like, I can't wear that, I'm going to save that. That's like a special shirt or something, and you're like, well, when are you going to wear it?
Yeah.
When are you going to wear the shirt? And it's just wear it today.
Yeah.
Like even this shirt, I was like, oh, I can't wear it. This is so fancy. It's so crisp. And I'm like, yeah, but wear it. Wear it on the podcast. It's so special. Like, you can wear your fancy jewelry. Like, what? Like my mother died, and I cleaned out her closet, and in the back of the closet, hidden in a suitcase, zipped up in a bag, hidden, was all her jewelry.
Right.
And I was like, whoa. And I know that she really valued it when she was alive. And it's like, that's it? Like, it just ends up in a, like, you're not even enjoying it. Even at the end of her life, I'm saying, like,
yeah.
I don't know. It really bums me out.
No, I went to there's this
enjoy it.
big old sort of historical house up the street, and they were like having an estate sale. And you're just like, this was like 85 years of accumulation, you know? And it's like, they could not be getting rid of it fast enough.
I know.
Like the ladies' clothes were still on hangers in the closet. That's that's the level of like estate sale this was. It wasn't like the family came in and took all the stuff they wanted. It was just like, get rid of fucking all of it. And then the rest goes in the dumpster, you know? And that's going to happen to you.
Yeah.
Like, that's going to happen to you. And so, what are you accumulating all this stuff for?
What's the shit for? Yeah. My mother had sacred couches. I don't know if your mother had the couches you're not allowed to sit on. We had beautiful. So my mother, we grew up very, not poor, but just lower middle class, okay? She ends up marrying this Indian guy who's also a criminal, and he was a sociopath, but he was very nice to me. I actually really enjoyed him. He's dead now too, but he made millions with her. He used her credit, and he did all these scams, and he made millions, and so we got rich. So I've been poor and I've been not poor. I can tell you being not poor is way better. But
the Stoics would say it's a preferred indifferent.
It is.
It's better to have than not have.
Oh, rich people problems are so. I hate when people poo-poo money. And when you see like these actors, like even Jim Carrey is like, oh, to be rich, I don't care. And it's like, shut the fuck up.
Don't you have a $30 million house in Montecito or
then
something?
Sell your stuff and go live in a van. Give poor people your stuff. Shut up about that. But the point is, the white silk couches. Yeah. I couldn't get rid of those fast enough. Because first of all, they're dated as shit. By the time I inherited them, they're from 1988. They look terrible. Well, they haven't been used, actually. So they're pristine. Yeah. But they're stupid. Yeah. And guess, I just donate them. I donate them. And my mother, for the life, we couldn't sit on it. We couldn't breathe on it. She laminated furniture. It was like, what is this for?
Would so your
now
parents
I'm not
let
precious.
You eat in the car?
No. Are you kidding me? And the car seats were covered in lamb's wool, or I
was like, where's that car now?
Yeah.
Like it's still a 1994 Volvo, right? Yeah. So like it's eventually became worthless. Like it didn't matter how good a care you took of it. Like eventually it becomes worthless anyway, you know? Or like, when I drew on the wall and I got in trouble, like somebody painted over that.
Okay.
You know, and when I walk through my garage to my car, there's like all these scribbles my son did when we weren't paying attention, you know? And it's like, I was frustrated when I was like, God damn it, you know? And then I go, now every time I pass it, I'm like, that is so cute. Because he's not a 2-year-old anymore. Yeah. That 2-year-old is dead. Like that 2-year-old does not exist anymore. And I would kill to have the 2-year-old again for just like 5 minutes.
5 minutes only, and then back to present.
But so it's like, what do you're fighting against this thing that you have that's wonderful to preserve this thing that is stuff that you don't actually care about, that's already becoming worthless.
Yeah, I don't care.
And there's something crazy about that.
I don't care for stuff. Look, it doesn't ring my bell. I like experiences. Not that I'm high and mighty. I do like nice stuff. Yeah. It just doesn't, I don't give a shit. Because I saw the fleeting nature of stuff when my mom got it and then she died and then it was all just given away. I was like, oh, that stuff's not the answer. That ain't it for sure. Experiences are great. I think money, if you look at money, the utility in money is so that you don't have to think about money.
Yes.
That's the greatest joy for me. And when the people say money can't buy happiness, go fuck your mother. You're lying and you're stupid and you're wrong, because it's bought me peace of mind. Like, I know, oh my gosh, if I get sick or something, okay. If you can throw money at it, it's not a real problem.
But if you're rich and you think about money all the time, you're not
That's
rich.
torture too, right? Yeah. Right. But I don't. I'm fine.
Yeah.
I just need a certain amount in my bank where I'm like, I'm good.
Well, people talk about fuck you money, and you can just have a like, no thanks money or whatever.
No
like, I'm good, you know?
Yeah. Yeah,
like
fuck you is a little aggressive.
Yeah. Well, and I think people think they need like an insane amount of money to be secure. But if you have a relatively simple needs, then you can feel that much earlier. And then also remembering, at some point you didn't have it and you were totally fine.
Yes, and that you can take care of yourself if you do lose it all tomorrow. Because I think there's also that worry too. Once you get successful, I must preserve the success and I must keep this up at all costs. And
Well, you think being rich will make you more secure and take those risks, now they won't be able to tell me what to do, or now I'll put out that thing but you actually, it has the exact opposite effect, because now you don't want to lose it.
You want to take risks.
And so you become a prisoner to the thing that you thought would free you.
Isn't that fucking some shit? More money, more problems.
So you studied philosophy at Oxford, but I heard you went through a goth phase first.
Oh my God, dude, bro. So I did a study abroad program at Oxford. And then before that, I was goth from the time I was 13. Embarrassingly, until 20. Bro, I sat in the dark for a decade. I only ate Count Chocula cereal. I was so...
Is that a goth cereal?
No, but it is now. And I did not go out in the sun. And I lived in the San Fernando Valley. And so even in the summertime, heat like this, Texas heat, I would be out there in full velvet dresses and witch boots and capes and stuff. I was really into being undead. Yeah.
What kind of music were you into?
Oh, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
I still listen, and sadly I still listen to the same stuff I liked when I was 15. Is that normal?
I think so.
I don't like current things. I love Bauhaus, and I actually, when they were touring, the singer's in rehab now, but for the last few years they were touring, and I would route my comedy touring schedule with Bauhaus.
Wow.
So that I could go to all their shows.
That's cool.
The Cure, Susie and the Banshees. I'm talking your classics, your standards. Do you know them?
Yeah, of course. I'm
Really?
a Cure fan.
Are you goth on the inside?
No. I was a heavy metal kid, which isn't quite goth, but it's goth adjacent.
Absolutely, it's a subculture.
Yeah.
What are your bands? Let's go.
Mostly like Metallica, Iron Maiden, Alice in Chains.
Hell yeah, dog.
I was into all that stuff.
Pantera.
Yeah.
Slayer.
I didn't like Slayer.
Yeah.
I was it was heavy metal and then sort of grunge. That was sort of my era.
It's a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked the first wave of goth. As far as I'm concerned, it ended. Marilyn Manson, it's Poser Town. I'm not into that. I like the British.
Yes. So if your kids were goth, would you encourage it? Or how do you, I've always been, what do you do when your kid's turning into a weirdo?
Well, first of all, I do encourage it. I have a goth room in my house. It's my office, my study.
Okay.
Because I've realized that I don't write or create anything in sterile desk environments. I don't think I've ever written a joke sitting at a proper desk. So I was like, why don't you just build a crazy goth room?
What's in a goth room?
Oh, it's everything awesome. I've got a bat light, a fixture. I've got dope ass dark wallpaper. I've got, I just bought from Hellraiser, the Hellraiser movies, the cube that lights up as a lamp. A lot of some skulls,
yeah,
pencils in them, pens. Yeah, dark shit, candles. And I get weird. I just get in there, I get weird.
What do your kids think of it?
Oh, yeah. So the point is, I've been educating them on goth culture. I make them listen to Bauhaus in the car already, and the Clash too. The classics.
Yeah.
Punk too. I mean, they think mom likes Halloween is what they say. Mom loves Halloween, and I'm always like, you guys love Halloween? I try to get them into it. And I wouldn't mind. So listen, but I was dark-sided because my parents were wackadoodles.
Sure.
So I think if your kid is as goth as I was,
it's a reflection of you.
Something's going on.
Yeah.
Those are demons that need to be addressed. You put that kid in therapy.
Right.
That's what I would do. Honestly,
Sure.
If my kids were doing that stuff, I'd be like, oh, dude, we got to go to a shrink, family counseling. Why?
Yeah.
Do you have a goth kid already?
No, I mean, he's only 6.
Yeah.
That'd be a little early.
Too early for that.
Yeah.
Would you want him to like metal?
I think so. They both do.
Yeah, dude.
They both do. Because there's dragons and, you know what I mean? They like the imagery and stuff.
Skulls.
And it's loud.
Yeah. Yeah, boys love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, they're into it.
That's cool. My kids like the Pixies. I got them into that early. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, look, I was just a brooding teenager. Were you angry too?
Yeah, not understood, sort of a lot of time alone in my room.
Samesies, yeah.
Which I think makes you creative because you're in here, but you want to be out. So sort of art or creating things is like a escape. And it's also a way to communicate and be understood, I think.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, I think you have to get weird first.
Sure.
To get creative, like really weird. Yeah, I wasn't a cheerleader. You know what I mean? Like that shit was never in my cards.
Yes.
So I didn't know how to get it out of me though, because I didn't know I could be a comedian. I didn't think that was really possible.
Well, because you don't know any comedians, right?
Actually, no. Interestingly enough, I grew up with Roseanne Barr's daughter,
Oh.
Jenny Pellin. She and I were best friends from the time I was 12. And then, like, we split up because we were getting into a lot of trouble together. But they split us up as friends or whatever.
But that would have been nice, because then you're like, oh,
Yeah.
this is a job one of my friends' moms has.
It was rad. And I visited the set. And, you know, unconsciously, unknowingly, I was like, oh, gosh. And then later on, yeah, I got into it.
I think that's I've said this before, but I think that's, obviously nepotism sucks, but I think part of the Nepo baby thing is you get to see your mom or dad do a job.
Yeah, that's cool.
And then so you're like, oh, this is a thing people do. And it gets humanized, and you understand that there's a process in a way that you don't if, like when I was growing up, like I didn't know anyone that didn't have a job. Like all my friends' parents had day jobs, like regular people jobs.
Yeah.
So the idea that like you could write books or like, obviously, you know, some people do those things, but those are different people, people not
true.
like you.
And until you see it, like even when I started doing comedy, like until headliners take you around and go, no, like you can make a living at stand-up comedy. Yeah. Here, like, here's how you do it. This is, and you go,
these are the forms you fill out. You know, like it's just like,
go to DMV.
It's just like you go like it just gets demystified.
Yes.
Very quickly.
Yeah. Yes, I agree. But it's so hard when you're starting because you're like, which really goes to show the importance of your surroundings.
Yes.
Because you can get really dragged down. Like I remember going to like really shitty public school that's what kind of what turned me off, and like just like seeing fights and seeing gangbangers and like bad stuff, and you're like, oh, how do I get out of? I'm stuck. I remember feeling so stuck. So yeah, you have to see it to get out of it.
Were you trying to get out of some of that stuff when you moved to Texas? Why did you guys move to Texas?
Oh, the Texas. I mean, look, our friends moved here, and I think the pandemic kind of ruined my neighborhood a lot. And also, like, I just didn't want my kids growing. I didn't want my kids growing up in showbiz. Yeah. I grew up in LA. Even I was not in show business. Like, yes, my friend's mom was famous, but my dad's a forklift mechanic. I grew up in like the West Valley. I'm not special or whatever. I just wanted my kids to have a normal. Yeah. Right? It's kind of more normal here.
It is.
You can learn to be an asshole later. Like grow up.
Well, it's like they already have exposure or proximity to show business. So do you need to over-index for that by also everyone else they meet being into that? Yeah, I agree. I just didn't want that. I didn't want my kids to, every house they go to, it's like a mansion and like, you should see the world. No, I've actually found that it's also better for me not being around people like me, because then I'm not as competitive. You know what I mean? Like I only care about what I'm doing and what I'm working on, and I live in my own little world. And most of the people that I meet are doing regular shit, as opposed to, did you hear so and so got X? Yeah. You know, it's like it makes it easier to tune out what other people are doing and just kind of be in your own lane.
So true. And I don't know why this made me think of it though, but when you're embarking on a journey of what it is you want to become, sometimes your biggest haters are people who are related to you.
Oh, like your family?
Yeah. Okay. Or people close to you. Sure. Who maybe inadvertently say things that may discourage you. Like I remember in the beginning being very guarded because I learned the lesson. I'm going to be a comedian. Oh, really? Right. Yes. Shut up. So I think like guarding your baby, like think of it as an infant, whatever it is you're planning, and just tend to that. And then eventually they'll see that you're successful and you don't have to say anything, you know?
That's really interesting. Yeah. When I decided to write my first book, Sam and I moved to New Orleans, and literally not one person asked me what I was doing. You know, like,
That's cool.
like, so I never said, oh, I'm working on a book.
Yeah.
And go, oh, sure. Yeah. I'd love to see it, you know, or whatever. Like, so when it was announced, like when it came out, everyone was like, oh, wow, that's so cool. And then I realized that they thought I was just a bum, basically. Like all the people we'd met and becomes friends with, they just, it just never occurred to them that I was doing anything at all. And it didn't matter. You know what I mean? And so it was so nice because I got to just sort of privately work on the thing and not be self-conscious about it or guarded about it or anything. Like I was just doing it. And then by the time it was ready for people to, like, it was done. By the time people were talking about it, it was done.
Yeah.
And I think carving out that space is really important.
Definitely being protective
Yes.
of your creative space, of your creative real estate in your mind. Even, I would say, keeping your mind weird, right? Like all those years I sat in a dark room being goth, that's where the sauce was. That's where the magic happened. I would read dark books and I would listen to dark music or whatever and just like marinate in my own stuff.
Yeah.
And that's where the good stuff is. Don't let people take that from you. Don't try to, and like for many years I was so afraid of being seen as a weirdo or crazy. And now I don't care as much. So you know what I mean? Like so much real estate in your mind is taken by keeping up with the Joneses.
Well, it's like, why would you want to be like everyone else in the sense that then you don't stand out from those people? Like the whole, you realize like creatively from a career standpoint, like the main thing is how does your thing stand out from all the other people that are doing that thing?
Yeah.
Right? So if you start from, well, what is everyone doing? I'll do that.
Oh, my life.
You've already fucked up. You know what I mean? Like you were saying, you're the only woman at this comedy club. That feels like a disadvantage, and it sucks that there weren't more women who felt comfortable doing it. But at the same time, it meant you had more space, right?
Yeah.
You were the only one, so you stood out. And so it's so interesting, like you can even see this on the wall. Like all these book covers look the same because like people see, and you can I know because I've watched a long time. Like I know like which trends or when the books came out. like everyone's doing X right now, and then everyone's doing Y right now. And so but the whole point of the cover should be that it stands out on the shelf, not that it goes, oh, that looks like a book that belongs on that shelf.
But isn't that what the publishing houses do? They go like, well, this is selling. You need, if you're a female, you need to have pink cover and black writing.
So you have to know who you are and what you're doing and be very confident in that. So you can resist the pressures that make you like, you got to get this haircut, you got to do this thing, you got to talk about this, you know.
But that's
the
where
whole
time.
point is to stand
but
out.
that's where time alone.
Yes.
Suffering.
Yeah. Right.
I think suffering is what. Yeah, if you're gonna be good at anything. And to speak back to the Nepo baby thing is like, I worry for my kids because yes, on the one hand, if they want to be comedians or writers, great. Like you've got the blueprint. I can tell you kind of what to do. At the end of the day, you need to be talented. I can't do that for you. What was the point of that one? Shit. Nepo baby stuff. Oh, the suffering. There's requisite suffering.
Sure.
That I worry my children won't have.
I'm sure there's suffering plenty.
But yeah. Well, maybe they won't be funny. I don't know.
Well, no, like sometimes because in
suffer.
the obstacles, the way they go like, so do you think I should like create obstacles for my kids? And I go, dude, life sucks, man. even like stuff's going to happen. They're going to have some learning disability, that someone's going to laugh at them, they're going to break their arm.
Yes.
Like you do not need to create
I think
obstacles.
My kid has all three is what you just said. I think one of the kids has all three.
Like it and by the way, like the arrogance that it's not fucking hard to be your kid. Like I think about that a lot. I go like, it's probably not easy to be my kid. Like I'm definitely aware it's not easy to be married to me. So like it's probably not so I don't need to, like they're already being tested.
What do you think is the worst part about being your kid?
That's a good question. I mean, I do have to be gone more than like a regular person would be gone, so that's already there. I'm busy, like I have a lot of stuff going on. I like what I do, so like I'm consumed by that, so I get distracted easily. And then I also think like I haven't met a ton of creative people who are not somewhat melancholy, at least somewhat melancholy. They don't have some childhood issues. There's not some wound or insecurity that's at the root of what made them be that. So like, obviously I also have that. So I think there's plenty of things that make it hard to be my kid.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
And is anyone like,
that.
it was great to have, like, I
don't know. I always wonder that. And the people that are like, my parents were great, nothing was wrong. Those people just haven't been to therapy yet.
Yeah, they haven't actually thought about, they haven't dealt with they're just passing that shit on to other people. They haven't been called out on their shit and had to go, why am I doing this? And then you find out, oh, it's because mom and dad.
Correct. They're just creating issues with everybody and fighting with you and stuff. And you're like, God, go to therapy, figure that shit out, man.
Yeah. Everyone has something.
Yeah. Now I have a question for you.
Okay.
I mean, you're a thoughtful guy. You think about Stoicism, you think deep thoughts and stuff. But what's the difference? How come there are people that are like that and then some people that aren't?
What do you mean? Like naturally stoic and then some people that aren't?
No, I mean like there are some people who never think about this stuff ever. I think.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, there's sort of the people who are blissfully unaware.
Is that what that is?
Well, I mean, I do think there is sort of a level of like, I don't know. I don't think a dog's thinking about any of this stuff, right? And there's certain happiness there. So I think there's that camp of people. And then I think there's the people who are deliberately not thinking about this stuff. And maybe that goes back to what we were talking about a little bit earlier, which is, have you read Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas?
No.
Oh, I have it in the store. It's a great book. But the epigraph to Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas is a quote. I think it's from Samuel Johnson. He says, "He who makes a beast of himself gets rid of the pain of being a man."
Ooh.
And so I think there is a contingent of society that just chooses to be consumed by or distracted by other things rather than having to think about these questions or having to make decisions or sacrifices or whatever.
I know. And I have to admit that I am jealous of those people, like envious.
Yeah.
In that, like, I really wanted to just be a normal blonde cheerleader. I really did.
Sure.
And I just, for so many years, I still flog myself. Like, gosh, I wish I could just be fucking normal.
Yeah.
And then my therapist is like, yes, but you've got the gift of comedy or whatever. And you're like, yeah. It's my superpower, all this suffering, blah, blah, blah.
It's not in the cards.
Yeah.
It's not in the cards. It's not the hand you were dealt.
No.
Yeah.
No, it's like like the Stoics would say, it ain't in your stuff.
Yeah.
You're just going to be thrown to the lions.
Yeah. Or, I mean, you're become the emperor or you become like, there's good things, but it's like, there's so much that's not in our control, like who we are, where we come from, what we got interested in, how our fucking synapses lined up and why this thing lights us up and this thing doesn't, why we got this predilection for addiction or why we got this, propensity to do this, like we all have, all of that stuff is preordained. And then you have these tiny set of choices. So, you either face that and come to terms with it and make it, or you live in a sort of world of, I was thinking about that line in The Office where she says like, I can't think of that way. Then he's, that's because your imagination sucks. He's like, I live in a fantasy world. And so like there is the Michael Scotts of the world that are just operating on another. Yeah. But I don't think happy is probably not the word I would use to describe that person.
Yeah.
But
they seem happy to me. I see them on Instagram.
Yeah. Maybe.
I don't know.
I mean, I hope so. Like, I think I've gotten to a point as I've gotten older where I go, I hope so. Like, I think when I was younger, I'd be like, they're not happy. It's fucking a lie or something. Yeah. And I'd be like, sure. It seems like it's working for you.
We're too tired. We're exhausted.
Yeah. I don't need to prove you wrong.
No.
Or make you see what I see. It's already sucks enough for me. So I'll just deal with my shit.
Yeah, that's all you can do is deal with your own shit.
Yes.
Take responsibility for your own shit.
Well, and then when you have kids, then you have like, it's like, I have these people. Like, I don't really care what you're doing.
Yeah.
That's why it does seem weird that people, like I just really don't have time or energy to be mad at trans people or gay people or whatever. Like I just I can't conceive why you would want to give a hard time to people who are having a fucking hard time when you yourself are having a hard time. Just focus on that. So it seems odd.
Yeah, but do you like? I don't know. Maybe I'm like naive, but I'm like, does anybody really give a rip about that stuff? Like, is it just a small group of people?
People seem to talk about it a lot. Seem to pass a lot of laws about it.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
You know.
Oh, that's true. Maybe in the South here. Yeah.
Yes.
I guess I'm from California, and they don't.
Well, you're only what, like 2 years into Texas?
Yeah.
We go through periods where we really love it here, and then we're like, we need to go spend some time in California, just as like a release valve, or just like be around our people, which we don't actually want to. It's like you have to go home and see your family sometimes.
I know.
It's like you don't actually want to live near your family or be with your family, but you need to like come home every once in a while. That's sort of how I found with Texas.
Yeah, I got that. Yeah, at the same time, as an outsider here, you know, culturally, I'm like, I try to be respectful and be like, look, dude, I get it. You guys don't like abortion. That's fine. I'm not going to say a damn thing.
It's not fine. It's not fine at all. It's totally fucked, but I get your general point.
But like, I live here. So when in Austin, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to talk to my neighbors about why they should have abortion. It's like, that's not my discussion for here.
Sure.
You know, maybe that's the immigrant in me that's very into like assimilation. Like my parents came here and they were like, that's it, we're American now. You know, we fly American flag. No more Hungarian shit. I'm like, yeah, dude, I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm into barbecue, brisket. Yeah, abortion sucks. Whatever, dude. Like, I'm not talking to you about it. Right?
I guess.
I'm not going to argue with you.
Yeah, but it's like they go like, "Don't California my Texas" or whatever. And you're like,
yeah.
First off, it's all in America. We fought a whole war about this.
Yeah,
it's all America. So you don't get to just take away basic like sort of American rights just because it's in Texas. It's in its own country. But also like, fucking California is great, dude. Like,
it was.
Well, the things we should take from California would be awesome, and then some things should stay there.
Definitely. Whatever.
We got anything else to talk about?
I feel like we covered so much. We started with polyamory.
Yes.
In the last episode.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Do we need to circle back? I feel like it's like almost a process. It's like first they go do an ayahuasca trip. And then they announce that they're opening their marriage.
Yes.
And then it's like, come on.
Oh my gosh, you're absolutely right. Actually, the people I know that became swingers, that's how it started. Like shaman things, and then and then we're just swing, and then all of a sudden it's like we're divorcing.
Yeah, of course.
Of course
you can just fast forward there.
Oh God. Yeah.
Yes, to each their own, but if we could just shut up about it, that would be
just
nice.
That's okay. I do feel like just shut up about it. That culture is gone. Yeah. Like, why do we have to share?
It's a boundaries issue. Like, I do like TikTok and Instagram, but some of the things that people fucking share,
I know.
I'm just like,
it's so embarrassing.
Yeah. You just like, you decided you're making a reel about how your husband doesn't satisfy you or something. And you're just like, he's going to see this. Like, what are you doing? But just people post the weird, and people just reveal themselves to be disgusting.
I know.
Or they show pictures of their houses and they're like,
oh my God,
you're showing this, you know? And it's just, it's a boundaries issue.
It is a boundaries issue. And like, why don't you have friends? Like there is one person, like a public figure, who is having a mental, it happens a lot, is having like a mental breakdown right now on TikTok. And I'm like, does this bitch not have friends or a publicist to be like, get off of social media? She's having like panic attacks on TikTok and filming herself. I'm like, stop.
Someone should tell Jordan Peterson that he's losing his mind.
Is he now?
Oh, totally.
What's going on? I haven't been catching up.
He's lost it. He's just like old man yells at cloud, all the time. Do you show pictures of your kids on social media? I'm supposed to write an article about this. I'm wondering what your thought is.
Never. I would never. I personally, look, even if Tom and I were not public figures, I would not put my children on Instagram.
Why?
Well, Who's looking at that stuff? You don't know.
Sure.
Sure, it could be friends and family, could be pedophiles. And it's like, it's the same reason I would not put a bumper sticker on my car that like, my kid was student of the month at this school. Basically, you're saying, hey, kidnappers, here's where my kid is.
I know our
every
kids go
day.
handing out these shirts, and I'm like, I'm not going to walk around with the shirt on what school they go to.
Never. And look, maybe that's Los Angeles paranoia. I grew up with stranger danger in the 80s. To me, protect them, hide them, don't know anything about them.
Yeah.
No way, man. And I also, Duncan Trussell was on my podcast where my mom's at, and we were talking about, there's this woman on Instagram who's like, here's how you get into Disney World. The first one in, and here's she has 4 sons, and here's the maximum day at Disneyland. I'm up at 4 a.m. By 4:15, I'm doing my workout. 5 a.m. we're in the, it's
I've
like, shut the fuck
my
up.
My morning routine before going to
Oh
Disneyland.
my God. So the point is, Duncan goes, well, these are child actors. These are unwilling participants. If you look at it philosophically, these are unwilling participants in her stupid Instagram feed. Yeah. She's exploiting her own kids to make a profit and to
at
get a
least
like.
Child actors get paid, and there's certain regulations and laws that apply to it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's not consensual. That
But
would
you
be
talk about them in your act.
Now here's the caveat, right? that's sticky. That's a sticky wicket, as they say. I like to talk about my reaction. I try to keep it within the emotional realm of like reactiveness, and some shit's fabricated.
Yeah.
It's all within telling tales, right?
Yeah.
That's what I would say. Like, it's fudged a bit. It is.
Do you
fudged.
show pictures of them but not their faces?
No, I think that's stupid too. Why would I blur out?
No, not the. But I'm just saying, like, if you were showing something and their back was turned, would you show that, or you?
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, do you
think.
deny they exist, or you just don't show them on social media?
Just don't show their face.
Yeah.
I think one time I did some video and my kid's hand comes in and like you can hear their voice, but they're not going to be in it. No, they want to be. My oldest wants to be on YouTube already.
Oh yeah. We told my son he has a YouTube channel, but they just just goes. It's like, you know what I mean?
But what's your policy? What do you think?
We don't show their faces at all.
Yeah.
And so, like, sometimes they're in the background of stuff, like YouTube videos, but again, not like, so yeah, they're just not in. I think there's something, so fundamentally, when people are posting personal content on social media, like not like what we do where it's like promoting something we're doing, but like fundamentally, you're asking to be validated or liked or approved by, to get imaginary internet points. It seems gross to use your kid as a thirst trap. Yeah. Is I guess what I'm saying. Yes. And so I just don't do it. And we just decided not to do it from the beginning. It wasn't like a fame thing or a safety thing, although those things came later. It just felt weird to go like, we had a baby, give us likes.
Oh, that's it. And I think too, listen, God, I'm scandalous. I'm going to say some shit right now. Like, oh God, what's her name? That model, Chrissy Teigen?
Yeah.
Like, this is horrible. Like, she had a miscarriage. Horrible. Is arguably, besides, it's the death of your child. It is the worst thing a woman can go through, okay? I have much sympathy. That being said, it's like so weird. Like, oh, so did you set up the camera crew before you began crying in this photo? Or like,
right.
what are you doing here?
I think you want to.
Did I get that name right? Chrissy T?
Yeah. I don't know if that's who he's talking about.
She's got
the one married to John Legend?
Yes.
That's her,
yeah.
But like, as a creative person, right? Like already you already go through life and you're like, is this a bit? Like, could I use, like, you're already thinking, there's part of your brain that thinks, how can I use this in my work? Like as a writer, you think that, right?
Yes.
I don't think you also want to activate a part of your brain as a regular person and then also as a creative person that's just going like, ooh, like people will like this photo of this 6-year-old. There's something creepy about like you're experiencing your life and then thinking, this will be good.
I can commodify
this is good content.
Ugh.
You don't want that. And
that's what people are doing. That's
I
terrifying.
know. And so I think just setting a hard rule that's not what you do, eliminates the temptation or whatever the algorithm activates in your brain. I think you just don't. Ideally, you don't want that.
So I'm friends with some influencer, like pure Instagram and pure YouTube influencers. And she was like, yeah, we went to Disneyland, this group of influencers and me. And she's like, it was the most annoying day. because all day it was like this is a moment that we can, this is a moment. And I'm like, oh my God, the misery.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
You're taking yourself out of your life to share your life with other people who, it's not.
But here's the interesting part, and I always think about this, is like, if you're posting my amazing vacation, my amazing life, my everything's amazing, what you're really doing is, most of the time, I think, inspiring envy.
Yeah.
Isn't the intent to show off and inspire envy? No one, very few people are going, good for you. Oh, that's amazing. I'm so happy for you, Catherine.
Yeah.
Like,
Sure.
nobody is stoked.
Yeah, they're kind of hate following.
Yeah. Like, I follow people that hate, like the Kardashians. I follow just obviously I'm up on the zeitgeist. Like, what the fuck are these idiots up to? First of all, they look amazing. I'm thoroughly jealous, envious of their faces and their bodies. They look great. What was the point of this? I guess I'm saying I follow them, but I hate them.
Sure.
Yeah, I hate them. I'm not stoked for Kim Kardashian or, you know?
Sure.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a good, I think if you're getting paid for it, I have some understanding for it. Do you know what I mean? If you're not, you should stay far away from it.
If I weren't a comedian, I wouldn't be on any of these things. I would not be on Instagram. I would not be on Facebook. But they make you, like the schools do, even like join. You have to get on the Facebook group for this school, and you're like, I don't want to be on Facebook, dude. I don't care. I don't know. So and so's birthday. I don't give a shit, dude. Don't make me do this. Like, they make you.
Yes. No. It takes some strength and discipline to not get sucked in.
Yeah.
It's easier to just do what everyone else is doing.
But can I tell you that the reason I'm more like, no thanks, no thank you, is because I was raised analog. My brain had half of its life in analog. And I didn't get a cell phone until I was 23. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, this is all new. So I can go back to a distant time. My kids, your kids.
Oh, I know. Especially because of the pandemic, like, they got the device was such a soothing sort of escape when they literally couldn't go places. It forms a weird trauma bond that I think is going to be very hard to undo.
A trauma bond. Hilarious.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I can feel when my son is stressed.
Yeah.
The iPad is a place of not stress. In the same way that your room and my room was that.
Do you have a weird room now?
Do I have a weird room? I mean, I have
the studio.
3 buildings that's just all my shit.
Bro, we need to build you a metal room.
A heavy metal room?
Hell yeah, dog. We could soundproof it. And then you can play your shit as loud as you want, and your wife won't hate you.
Yeah, I should do that.
That would be really cool. Do you play an instrument?
I was in a heavy metal band as a kid, but I haven't played the guitar in 20 years.
I think you should start.
I probably should.
One thing you're going to learn is that you're going to have your midlife crisis pretty soon.
Yeah.
And so you need to channel it into something productive. Like
Not like a motorcycle or an affair or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, I just reignited my love of goth stuff, which is why I started following Bauhaus. That was part of my midlife crisis. And then I cut my hair off.
Sure.
And now I rebuy all the shirts that I had as a teenager.
I've been doing that too.
Mm-hmm. Oh, next you're going to get into vinyl. I've been rebuying.
Well, you know, there's a vinyl record store next to the bookstore.
There you go. Perfect.
My office looks out over a vinyl record store.
Get ready to rebuy Metallica's greatest hits.
They're playing with Pantera in LA like later this month. I think I'm going to go.
There you go. There's your midlife crisis.
Should we call it?
Let's call it, bro. Good job.
All right.